The story starts in a dark part of town, where a woman runs away from two would-be thugs who corner her in a dark alley, leaving her with no escape. Suddenly, a boy appears behind them and tells them to run, but they dismiss him, wondering what a child has to do with their business. They warn him to get lost if he knows what's good for him. The boy warns them again to run away if they don't want to die. The thugs think he's just trying to act tough, but they decide they need to teach him not to interfere with grown-up matters. As the boy removes the bandage from his neck, a few ants start to emerge from the hole he was covering. Suddenly, one of the thugs is ripped in half, and blood sprays all over his friend's face. The woman, who seemed vulnerable, is an insector. She had known the boy would interfere with her meal and decided to reveal her true form to deal with him. Terrified, the remaining thug runs away, while the boy becomes increasingly engulfed in ants. The woman calls him by his true name, the Black Ant. The next day, the bug reapers are fast at work analyzing the murder site, which looks more like a battlefield with cuts and holes everywhere. They find the unidentified lower body of a man. Their witness, still in shock, offers little information, only mentioning a boy in the area. The main researcher lights a cigarette, and the smoke kills a nearby mosquito, showing its pesticidal properties. The first sighting of the Insectors was in 2005 when monsters resembling normal insects began appearing worldwide. Wherever they go, they cause harm, whether to feed or out of enjoyment. The most disturbing thing about these creatures is that they have seamlessly integrated into society, living among humans without a care. These are the Insectors. Most people still consider them an urban legend, but they are very real. If anyone suspects someone to be an insector, they should contact the bug reapers immediately. This was a pamphlet read by the class head of a certain classroom. The teacher congratulated her for reading it so well and noted that most of them must already know what happened yesterday in Name and Dawn. The police are certain it's connected to an insector, so the students shouldn't hang around after school and should go straight home. The class head, Ara Ah, is asked by her friend, Bang Sae Jean, if she lives in Name and Dawn, which she confirms. Sae Jean asks Ara to go home together, as she doesn't feel safe walking alone. Meanwhile, two guys discuss the bug people, with one asking if the other thinks they're real. The other believes it, pointing out that there's an insect in their class too, referring to Kami Misun, who looks like a drone. The teacher asks for the assignment he gave last time, but the class groans. He warns that it will be graded whether they did it or not, affecting their overall grades. He asks Ara to gather up every assignment and bring it to him once she's done. As the bell rings and the teacher leaves, two boys tell Ara not to submit the assignments since most of them didn't do it. They argue that she should let them all sync together, as it's just a grade. Ara refuses, not wanting to be irresponsible. The argument is interrupted when Misun hands his assignment to Ara, who thanks him with a blush. As he sits down, he notices an ant in his notebook that seems to resonate with him. One of the bullies crushes the ant, telling Misun to stop acting like a drone, only knowing how to follow orders. He also mocks Misun's bandage on his neck, suggesting he has a hickey. As Misun remains silent, Ara asks her friend what a hickey is, blushing when she finds out. She then tells the bullies to stop, saying it's none of their business. Despite this, the bullies remove Misun's bandage, revealing a large black spot on his neck. One of the bullies gets mad, wondering why Misun tries to cover it up to seem cool or interesting. Suddenly, an ant crawls out of the hole in Misun's neck and down into his uniform, scaring the bully. He falls to the ground, swearing that an ant just came out of Misun, while his friend thinks he's lost it. Sae Jean asks Ara if she likes Misun, making her blush and deny it. But in her head, it's only natural for her to like him. He is very athletic, studious, and eats like a bull. How could anyone not admire such a fine specimen? Later, Ara goes to the teacher's lounge and submits the homework as promised. Only she and Misun had completed it. The teacher mutters curses under his breath about the other students and tells Ara that she and Misun are free to go home. Those who didn't do their homework must stay behind for garbage collection duty after school. As Ara walks back to class, she wonders if she should tell the others about this. They might get angry if they find out, but she doesn't want to go home alone. She remembers that Misun also lives in the Namendong area, so she gets the idea to invite him to walk home with her. When she returns to class, she spots Mi-sun reapplying his bandage in a nearby mirror. She explains what the teacher said, that they are free to go, and asks if he would like to walk home with her. Mi-sun apologizes, saying he cannot because he has urgent business to attend to. Reluctantly, she lets him go. Meanwhile, at the incinerator, the students start cleaning up, with the bullies grumbling about the task. Sae-jin tells them to just clean up so they can finish quickly. When someone asks if they will at least get some extra grade credit for it, Ara, crouching down and sweeping sadly, responds with a no. Sae-jin asks her why she isn't just going home, and Ara explains that she's waiting for her. She also mentions that Mi-sun rejected her invitation, leaving her with no one to walk home with. Sae-jin is surprised at Ara's courage but finds Mi-sun's refusal harsh. Ara defends Mi-sun, saying he's sweet, cool, and a bunch of other colorful adjectives. While the others continue working, the bullies sneak behind a building for a smoke break, still talking about Mi-sun and the ant that crawled out of his neck. The bully who saw it vows to mess with him tomorrow, but he won't get the chance. An insector is waiting for them, eager for their flesh. It instantly kills both bullies, with one of their heads flying directly to a classmate's feet. She screams and runs away, warning everyone about the insector on the loose. As the insector emerges, it repeats the same words, "I told you." It says them again and again while killing anyone not fast enough to escape. Despite the students' efforts to evade, the insector is too fast. Sae-jin is suddenly pulled back by a male student in full survival mode. As she falls, she hits her head on a rock. Ara immediately crouches beside her, urging her to wake up so they can run. Unfortunately, the insector is already behind Ara, repeating the same words. Ara stands to defend her friend, but then the carapace of the insector opens up, revealing the teacher's head. He scolds her, saying he told her to leave after school. Shocked, Ara tries to process this, but the teacher, now extremely mad, says he must silence her for good. Before he can crush her, a fast and dangerous line of ants slices off both his arms, saving Ara's life. She looks up to see her savior, a figure in a black suit, almost like a comic book hero. As the black-suited hero stands proud, Ara faints from the shock, but the hero catches her before she falls. The teacher, in disbelief, asks why the hero, known as the Black Ant, is killing his kind. He questions if Mi-sun truly fights for humans. Mi-sun responds with a single punch that sends the teacher flying into a nearby building. He gently places the unconscious girls in a safe spot, stating that he does not fight for humans but for something else. The teacher, enraged, claims that insectors are at the top of the food chain due to their endless evolution, surpassing all other species. He insists there is no need to protect humans, whom he considers insignificant bugs. Mi-sun counters with another punch, silencing the teacher momentarily. The teacher taunts Mi-sun, saying if he wants to fight, he will consume him and leave the humans be. The teacher charges at Mi-sun in a ball shape, hitting him with full force despite Mi-sun's attempts to block. The relentless attacks leave Mi-sun battered and struggling. As the teacher prepares one final, devastating attack, Mi-sun commands the ants to prepare for combat. The teacher descends with full force again, but fails to notice the gaping hole in his chest caused by Mi-sun's secret weapon. Utilizing his transformation abilities, Mi-sun removes the ants from his legs, enhancing his arms into something monstrous. The teacher tells him to let go, and Mi-sun does just that, hurling him with full force. He doesn't stop there. Using his momentum, he grabs the teacher again and pummels him to the ground. Before the teacher can ask where his power comes from, Mi-sun raises him into the air once more and begins crushing him slowly with his increased strength. The teacher begs him to stop, claiming he hasn't evolved enough and hasn't reached his true form. Mi-sun shows no mercy and, like a used soda can, crushes him into bits. With his objective completed, Mi-sun declares that he's quite hungry and should go eat. However, behind him stands another insector, who had watched the fight with great anticipation. Eventually, the bug reapers arrive, and many students start taking pictures while some reporters gather to cover the situation. The previous researcher, accompanied by a new one, begins examining the area. They note that it looks more like a battlefield than anything else. They speculate that insects might have been fighting, but question why they would do that with people around. The other researcher recalls what the thug said about a kid appearing and suggests it might have been a territorial defense or something similar. One of the bug reaper workers informs them that the schoolgirl who survived the beetle attack just woke up and mentioned that a man in a black hero suit saved her. As they walk to the ambulance, they hear another surviving student being interviewed. He claims he saved all his friends who couldn't escape and quickly reported the scene to the bug reapers. He lies with a smile and tries to show them footage of the beetle beasts, but his recordings are blacked out and mostly corrupted. An employee remarks that if the kid had any usable footage, the journalists would have already been on it. He suggests removing the journalists to prevent further interference. The smoking researcher advises ignoring them, noting that this is no longer an urban legend, so media involvement is expected. The scarred researcher questions if this will be taken seriously, as believing in these creatures is difficult unless one is a victim. They arrive at Ara's location, where she is talking with her mother. Ara puts her respiratory mask back on, disliking people who smoke at school. The researcher puts out his cigarette, explaining that it's insect repellent, but he'll stop for her. He asks Ara if she recalls anything important. She recounts that when their teacher-turned-monster tried to kill them, a black-suited human appeared. The scarred researcher questions why she refers to him as human. Ara explains that despite his differences, he seemed human. She was knocked out afterward, so she doesn't remember much else. But she knows the person who saved them was different. He protected them. The smoker researcher asks if any other students were exempt from cleaning duty, and Ara mentions there is only one, Mi-sun. When Mi-sun gets home, his grandma warmly invites him to eat, saying she has prepared all his favorite dishes. Mi-sun looks at the food with a certain disgust and says he's not hungry. His grandma notices he's bruised and dirty and asks if he's all right. Mi-sun confirms, apologizing that he cannot taste her cooking. She tells him it doesn't matter as long as he's healthy and to go rest in his room, assuring him not to worry about the food. He promises to eat it all in the morning, feeling guilty. After he goes to his room, his grandma starts to cry, lamenting how their lively boy has turned into a monotone person who becomes weirder by the day. As night falls, Mi-sun's aunts start carrying pieces of something directly to his room through a slightly open window. News about the high school incident blares on TV, with people expressing their fear and calling for the extermination of insectors who live among them without a care. The ants slowly return to Mi-sun's body, bringing with them the food they collected a beetle. The next day, the police search an abandoned building tied to a series of child disappearances. The operation involves 3 people, a captain and 2 geared soldiers. The police team ascends to the 3rd floor, moving swiftly but halting when they hear strange sounds. The captain cautiously approaches a wall and peeks into the room, his eyes widening at the sight of numerous cocoons. Outside, 3 individuals sit in a car, the smoking researcher leader, and 2 members of the bug leader combat unit, Tae and Sam. Tae complains about the boredom of the operation, suggesting they should just eliminate everything quickly. Sam reminds him that they are still under government review, so the police have priority in this investigation. Suddenly, the captain's urgent request for immediate support crackles over the radio. Tae teases Sam for shaking, but Pyo, the smoking research team leader, tells them to stop joking and get moving. Inside the building, the policemen begin cutting down the cocoons from the ceiling. One of them suggests they should have waited for the bug reapers, but the captain insists on acting quickly, as their opponent is an insector. As they start opening the cocoons and freeing the children, one officer is instantly killed by the hidden insector, who demands they release his children. The other policeman tries to cover his captain by shooting, but the insector swiftly takes him out. The captain, stunned by the insector's speed, prepares to face his inevitable end. Before the insector can reach him, a bullet disrupts its sprint, nearly severing its needle-like appendage. The shot, taken by Sam from a distance, was close but not precise enough. The insector berates them for using bullets that might harm his merchandise. As he charges the captain again, Tae intervenes, questioning why this scum is speaking so arrogantly. The insector, surprised by Tae's sudden presence, asks who he is, to which Tae responds by identifying himself as a bug reaper. Pyo instructs the captain to evacuate with the children, asserting that this is now their fight. The Insector, enraged, declares he won't let that much money slip away. As he prepares to attack again, Pyo's smoke incapacitates him temporarily. Pyo demands that the Insector come quietly and reveal everything about the child trafficking operation. The Insector, removing his needle, dismisses them as weaklings and laments that the black ant hasn't shown up. He then unleashes a barrage of needles, which Pyo and Tae deflect. The Insector escapes, and although Sam attempts to shoot him, he is hit and injured. Pyo and Tae regret losing the fly Insector, but there's nothing more they can do. Following the incident at the school, it was closed for a week in memory of the deceased children. Soo Young, who first reported the Insector, was undeservedly awarded the Brave Citizen Award. Ara reads this on her phone while dealing with her younger brother, who annoys her until she gives him a few thwacks, making him run off to talk to their mom. Ara, uninterested, resents having to look after her brother, especially after recent events. As her brother tries to scare someone else, Ara notices it's Mi-sun, who is enjoying some ice cream. They join him, and Ara can't help but feel guilty about revealing his identity to the Bug Reapers. She asks if anything bad happened recently, but Mi-sun assures her everything is fine, which reassures her. Her brother builds a pyramid out of ice cream sticks, but then he spots a ball and goes to play soccer with another child. Mi-sun bites his ice cream stick harder as he watches, making Ara wonder if he's had enough. The kids lose the ball and chase it through a small gap in the fence. Ara calls her brother back, but he ignores her. Mi-sun says he will go after him, despite Ara's attempts to stop him. As he slips through the small rupture in the fence, he spots the other kid wearing a familiar mask, who asks Mi-sun what he's doing, giving him a knowing glare. Ara's brother eventually returns and tells her that her friend told him to come back and wait. Mi-sun tells the masked kid to sit still, but the kid warns him not to be aggressive, as they are both hunters. However, the masked kid complains that Mi-sun ruined his hunt and that he's already in a bad mood because of some Bug Reaper bastards. He says he'll let Mi-sun go this time since he seems like a newbie, but he won't be so merciful next time and will beat him up if he finds him in his territory again. Mi-sun pulls off his band-aid and equips his armor, asking what territory the kid is talking about. The Insector, surprised, realizes he has finally found the traitor hunter, the black ant. He's been waiting for him, as there are rumors that the black ant eats other bugs these days. If that's true, he must be aiming for him next. The Insector transforms into his original form and immediately strikes Mi-sun, who regenerates his armor. The Insector continues attacking at lightning speed, mocking Mi-sun for daring to fight him. Mi-sun scratches his head and, with a single shut up, puts the Insector into the ground with one punch, his patience having run out long ago. Eventually, Mi-sun emerges from the wooded clearing, noting that he found the ball and returned it to its owner. Ara's brother asks if he can eat more ice cream, as it seems too much for just one person. Ara finds his attitude rude, but Mi-sun smiles and says he can have it all. This surprises her, as she has never seen him smile before. She asks again if they can have all the ice cream, and he confirms, saying he is very full now. In the clearing, the Insector's body lies desecrated, slowly being consumed by ants. After their sudden vacation, the students return to school as if nothing ever happened, chatting about their week off and other trivial things, not thinking about the Insectors that are everywhere. When Ara gets to her class, she notices that Class 3 is closed, and the remaining students have been transferred to other classes. She wants to pay her respects and leave flowers, but she can't, and she is no longer the class president. In her new class, Class 1 to 5, she looks at her conversation with SAE Jean, which is one-sided, as SAE Jean hasn't responded to any of her messages. The reason is unknown to Ara. She closes her phone and is annoyed that she ended up in class with Soo Young, who is undeservedly recognized as a hero. Some students in classes 1 to 5 ask Soo Young what happened, as they all know he didn't save any of his friends. He explains that if he hadn't been swift, he would have certainly died, as the teacher's punches were like boulders. Ara glares at him as he talks, but a female student, Lee Yi-jin, suddenly gets up and kicks Soo Young in the groin, silencing him. Soo Young asks what's wrong with her, but Yijin tells him and the others to shut up. The other student, who had been acting cool with Su Young, immediately backs down, not wanting to mess with the famous Yijin. Ara admires Yijin's confidence and how she shuts Su Young up. As Yijin walks out, she meets Mi-sun, who simply looks at her before entering the classroom. Ara invites Mi-sun to sit next to her, and he does. She excitedly tells him about Yesa Yijin, who managed to silence Su Young and is a big deal in this class. Mi-sun, uninterested in her chatter, opens a bag of chips and starts eating before class begins to appease his hunger. After the class ends halfway, Mi-sun tries his best to study, but his growling stomach is quite audible. Ara invites him to join her for lunch later, noting that he seems very hungry. He agrees, but as the teacher explains what will and will not be on the test, Mi-sun suddenly feels the presence of another insector, which hits him like a truck, sending tingles through all of his senses. As soon as class ends, before Ara can even ask him to get going, he sprints out of the classroom, making her think he is hungry. Mi-sun jumps the school fence and starts running as if his life depends on it. Meanwhile, Tae and Pyo, the two bug reapers, discuss whether the fly insector is still alive or has been captured. Pyo suggests that the insector might be dead, speculating that other beings might be hunting insectors for some reason. Turning a corner, Mi-sun bumps shoulders with Pyo, prompting Tae to scream at him to respect his elders and apologize, but Mi-sun doesn't stop running. Pyo tells Tae to let it go, suggesting the kid is probably hurrying somewhere important, though Tae still feels the need to scold him. They arrive at the teacher's office and pull Ara out of her class. Pyo explains they are here to interview the student who went home during the school cleaning. Ara is surprised to see the smoking bug-repellent researcher again and tells them the student they are looking for just bolted home moments ago, probably because he was hungry. Tae believes it was the rude student who bumped into them earlier. With their business done, Pyo hands Ara a business card and asks her to pass it on to her friend whenever she gets the chance. They decide to visit Sam at the hospital while Ara looks at the card, which contains a few words of information and a phone number. Deep inside long-forgotten tunnels beneath a bunch of roads, the insector that Mi-sun sensed waits patiently. Mi-sun arrives, ready to brawl in his full ant suit. The insector slowly descends from his waiting spot, beckoning him to come forward, clearly challenging him to a fight. Mi-sun is the first to attack, but his punch is redirected, and the insector uses his other hands to push him away. This doesn't stop Mi-sun, who moves in to throw another punch, causing the insector to start wobbling and moving strangely. This is not because of Mi-sun's punch, though. He notices one of his ants is on a piece of silk connected to the insector. As a test, he summons a ball of ants and throws them at the insector. This reveals the insector is being controlled by a bunch of silk strings that the ants manage to cut up, leaving the insector lifeless on the ground. Mi-sun gets closer to analyze the insector, but as he picks up the strings, the insector seemingly comes back to life. With a final smile, the insector churns out a bomb from his stomach that immediately activates and explodes before Mi-sun can even think of moving. After the dust clears, two insectors stand before Mi-sun. One of them remarks that he probably didn't expect this, considering the countless murders he's already committed. The silk insector asks if he is the one who killed the fly, but Mi-sun remains silent. The bomb insector notes that with the fly out of the picture, they're in a difficult position, as customers demanding young meat are now yelling at him because he decided to play the hero. What a joke. He should know that he's only being killed now because his hunting is interfering with business, so he should feel unlucky or blame himself for this blunder. Before he can shoot another bomb, the silk insector decides to rip Mi-sun's head off with a kick. However, no blood spills out, revealing it was just a shell that Mi-sun left behind. Surprised, the silk insector, whom the bomb insector calls Silky, realizes they've been fooled. That bastard got away. Unfortunately for them, Mi-sun didn't run away and is now above Silky, hitting her straight in the head with a heavy boulder punch. He immediately moves on to the bomb insector, who, despite his weak physical condition, moves swiftly. But not swiftly enough as Mi-sun's attacks start to land. Desperate, the bomb insector unleashes a bomb that manages to hit Mi-sun, but Mi-sun defends himself with the few ants he has and counterattacks again. However, his attack is blocked by Silky, who congratulates him for gaining the upper hand briefly. "But you shouldn't forget," she says. "This is a 2-on-1. You have no real chance of victory." She keeps him tightly in place as she spins into the air, resulting in a deadly set of kicks that sends Mi-sun flying and depletes his stamina, leaving him defenseless. The bomb Insector points his weapon directly at Mi-sun's head, preparing to destroy his entire upper half. But Mi-sun hasn't given up. He tells the ants in his suit to move, even though they are swift. The bomb Insector is prepared to unleash the attack, declaring that Mi-sun's hunt is finally over. A large explosion occurs, but it happens above them on one of the roads. The bomb Insector's weapon was redirected by Tae, who notes that he has to pay the fine for damaging that road with leaves or whatever Insectors pay with. The bomb Insector moves out of the way, and from behind them, Pyo remarks that they dared to gather openly like this and start breaking things. This is just crossing the line at this point, or perhaps they think that humans are weaklings. Such insolence shouldn't happen. These damn pests should just all die. Seeing the situation deteriorate, the bomb Insector pulls a bomb from his weapon, surprising both Tae and Pyo. But after he throws it, it's shown to be just a smoke bomb, allowing him and Silky to escape safely. Tae, frustrated with these flying bugs, expresses his annoyance, while Pyo wonders if they could get some helicopter support one day. Tae thinks it's fine, as they at least have this black ant to question, but Mi-sun is long gone, making him scream out in frustration as the commander will have their heads for this blunder. Mi-sun, bleeding profusely, slowly but surely makes his way back home, leaving pools of blood everywhere he goes. When he gets back to his apartment, he starts eating all the food his grandma made for him, making her wonder what happened to him. As he comes back home injured and with an insatiable hunger, she worries about what he went through. Mi-sun thinks he cannot devour a single thing, so he has to fill this hunger with something else. But even so, he is still too hungry. After he finishes eating, he makes his way to his room and closes the door. Once behind closed doors, the pain starts and questions from others begin popping up in his mind. Why is he killing his kind? To protect humans? That is not the reason. He remembers how the fly Insector told him that he broke the rules of their world by eating his kind, but that's not it. For someone like him, those rules have no meaning. He has to eat and eat and eat until there is nothing left. Otherwise, he will be the one who is eaten, as the ants are doing right now, causing him to scream out in pain. In a rundown warehouse, a familiar figure pulls 3 corpse bags around using strings, eventually arriving at a cooling room where they throw the corpses in to keep them as fresh as possible. However, one of the corpses is not dead. Inside, a living human begs for salvation. The person throws him in with the others and slowly starts closing the door. The man continues to beg for his life, engulfed in complete darkness, forced to freeze with the other corpses around him. Somewhere else in the warehouse, an elderly man smashes the table, extremely mad that they failed to capture the black ant, which would have surely attracted the attention of the heavenly insects. However, those damn bug reapers came out and ruined their plans. If it weren't for them, they could have made something of themselves. He tells the familiar figure, who turns out to be Yi-jin, to increase the human supply, as what she is bringing in right now just isn't enough. She responds that she's already increasing it, but he should remember that she doesn't enjoy doing this, so he should stop implying she is lazy. The bomb Insector notices her uniform and approaches her, noting that it's the same as the black ants.